We are a little bit stressed as a treat. Hello. So if you came in thinking that this is a debut stream, I've already streamed This Is a Lie. I apologize if you're here for a debut. There is no debut whatsoever. Hello. We will be continuing to read The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Night Ravens can have a little stress as a treat. I have been so stressed today, between traveling and just having to set this up. I woke up at 5:30 in the morning so that I could make my flight, and then I did, which was good, but then I had to work for 8 hours, and then I came back and I went to sleep instead of setting up for stream. So that is why I'm 20 minutes late, and we are stressed out, but now that I am home, I do have my physical copy of The Picture of Dorian Gray, which would be a lot easier to read, and I am absolutely exhausted. But it's okay, because we're here. This is fine. Everything's okay. If I fall asleep on stream, it will become a sleep stream. Thank you so much for dropping by, Lady Sorova. Yes, you did miss my debut stream. The VOD is up currently, but we are going to dive back into Oscar Wilde and reading The Picture of Dorian Gray. We are going to start from the beginning because I could not finish the first chapter, and I think that everyone deserves the full story. Sleep stream, ayo. There's quite a few VTubers doing 24-hour streams that have sleep streams. I don't know how they do it, to be completely honest. I also don't know if that's allowed. You gotta add redeems to influence your dreams. No, I need to influence your dreams. It's the wrong way around. Oh, hello, welcome, Shoko. Alright, Shuko equals Coco. Got it. Thank you for the translation, Matt. So we will be doing a little bit of reading today. Why is it that I can read perfectly well black text on a white piece of paper, but as soon as you make me read black text on a white screen, I simply cannot do it? I also appreciate you checking in on me, being like, hey, did you die? I did for a while, but then I woke up again. Your fans are cocoa beans. I love it. I think I'm just too accustomed to reading in dark mode. Yes, I've attuned to the magic of paper books. The sad thing is, I do have a copy of the uncensored Picture of Dorian Gray. So, originally, this was the book that Oscar Wilde first wrote before they took out a bunch of the homoerotic subtext. So this would actually be a better read for Pride Month, I would say. But since Pride Month is over, we all have to pretend to be straight now. So we're going to be reading the published edition that has now been censored. Because, you know, it's just bros being bros. Just a couple of fellas simping over one another and drawing each other naked. Nothing gay about that, you know. So, I've already read the preface, and hold on a second. I have to silence my phone because it is making noises. Alright. So straight, definitely not a man married to a man, haha. Yes. And I'm definitely a completely normal office worker with regular looking hair. Hopefully the background music isn't too much louder than my mic. I haven't had a chance to, what is it called? Equalize the audio. It's not gay if you wear socks. It's not gay if you don't make eye contact. And I have plenty of water here today to aid me in this. Let me see if I can make this dark mode. Can you make... Just remember to say no homo when you finish. Oh, you have to download something. Well, that sucks. I don't want to download anything. Maybe... Hold on, I think I have a hack for this. I think what I'm going to do... Okay. Hold on, because this is... I'm an absolute genius. I hope you will appreciate this. And it is that I will copy and paste it into Google Docs and set it to dark mode. But now we have another problem. And the problem is that I don't know how to set it to dark mode. So really, we're just suffering all the time. What's a little bit of suffering among friends? What's a little bit of suffering? It is definitely 1000% bug brain because I don't know how to do this. Hold on. Now I will, for my next move, I will Google how to turn. So at my current place of work, our IT guy left. So I'm also running IT on top of paying invoices as well. And in my amazing IT feat today, I hope you will all be incredibly impressed. There was a Zoom room computer that wasn't working properly, and I turned it off and turned it back on again, and it started working. I moved that I should get a pay raise. But anyways. Oh, I have to add it to Chrome. Why is it like this? Dark mode. I think you can turn it on. Okay. The Android app, that's not correct. Okay. This is absolutely riveting. Real engineering moment. Yes, tech god Jirou. Exactly. Okay. So it just wants me to use it. It wants me to add it to the Chrome. This is cool. So I've now downloaded a extension from God knows where. And hopefully this works. Okay, it made the background dark, but it did not make the text dark. So, we're still suffering today. Wait, hold on. Mads, how are you still using Internet Explorer? They stopped supporting it. They stopped supporting it as of a few days ago. Or a week ago? Time is strange. You are memeing, I see. You know, sometimes, Mads, it's hard to tell because I feel like you meme all the time. Yes, I want the second one. How does one? Ah, yes. No. I feel like it's lied to me. Wow, I just got this extension. And I already hate it here because it's lying. Fine, you know what? I'm just going to... Oh, that looks worse. This is actively worse. I don't know if I should show you what I'm seeing right now, but... Hold on. I don't think I can. You are a pile of memes in a beaver suit. A beaver hand puppet suit. Also, please tell me when you will start streaming. Because I look forward to also assisting you in your streams. Okay, what if I... Aha, no, that's not what I want. Okay, I think we're getting somewhere. Yes, alright, okay, so we are going to start. You are not a puppet, you are a real beaver. One day you will grow legs and it will be terrifying. But before we continue, will you please tell me if the background sound is, or the background music rather, is too loud? After I reach affiliate, so next week. Is it, oh, sorry about that. Is it one of those, only one person can do affiliate rush at a time? But anyways, let's begin reading. So we are currently reading The Picture of Dorian Gray, the censored version, chapter 1. And give me 1 second, let me just adjust my camera so that I'm actually looking at the screen. There we go. Just gotta swap these. And we're good. Okay. I apologize for sounding tired. It is because I am. And let me move chat over to this side. There we go. Background music. Okay, good. Thank you everyone for joining me today. And without further ado, this is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, Chapter 1. The studio was filled with the rich odor of roses, and when the light summer wind stirred amidst the trees of the garden, there came through the open door the heavy scent of the lilac, or the more delicate perfume of the pink flowering thorn. From the center of the divan of the Persian saddlebags on which he was lying smoking, as was his custom, innumerable cigarettes, Lord Henry Wotton could just catch the gleam of the honey-sweet and honey-colored blossoms of the laudanum, whose tremulous branches seemed hardly able to bear the burden of a beauty so flame-like as theirs. And now and then the fantastic shadows of birds in flight flitted across the long, tussore silk curtains that were stretched in front of the huge window, producing a kind of momentary Japanese effect, and making him think of those pallid, jade-faced painters of Tokyo, who, through the medium and art that is necessarily immobile, seek to convey the sense of swiftness and motion. And once again, I do remind you that this was written quite some time ago, so the language, I do not condone it, will be a little bit outdated as a result. The sullen murmur of those bees shouldering their way through the long unmown grass or circling with a monotonous insistence round the dusty gilt horns of the straggling woodbine seemed to make the stillness more oppressive. The dim roar of London was like the bourbon note of a distant organ. Oh, it's coming in a little loud? Okay. One moment. You have to tell the music to calm down a little bit. Hopefully that's better. Or maybe I should be louder, but I'm looking at the equalizer right now and it seems to be alright. Anyways, the dim roar of London was like the bourbon note of a distant organ. In the center of the room, clamped to an upright easel, stood the full-length portrait of a young man of extraordinary personal beauty, and in front of it, some distance away, was sitting the artist himself, Basil Howard, whose sudden disappearance some years ago caused, at the time, such public excitement and gave rise to so many strange conjectures. Okay. Yes, I could turn my... I was just saying that I could also turn my mic up as well, but the equalizer seems to be fine with it. But thank you for letting me know. As the painter looked at the gracious and comely form he had so skillfully mirrored in his art, a smile of pleasure passed across his face, and seemed about to linger there. But he suddenly started up and, closing his eyes, placed his fingers upon the lids, as though he sought to imprison within his brain some curious dream from which he feared he might awake. "It is your best work, Basil, the best thing you've ever done," said Lord Henry languidly. "You must certainly send it next year to the Grosvenor. The Academy is too large and too vulgar. Whenever I have gone there, there have either been so many people I've not been able to see the pictures, which was dreadful, or so many pictures that I've not been able to see the people, which was worse. The Grosvenor is really the only place." "I don't think I shall send it anywhere," he answered, tossing his head back, in that odd way that used to make his friends laugh at him at Oxford. "No, I won't send it anywhere." Lord Henry elevated his brows and looked at him in amazement through the thin blue wreaths of smoke that curled up in such fanciful whirls from his heavy opium-tainted cigarette. "Not send it anywhere? My dear fellow, why? Have you any reason? What odd chaps you painters are. You do anything in the world to gain a reputation. As soon as you have one, you seem to want to throw it away. It is silly of you, for there's only one thing in the world worse than being talked about, and that is not being talked about. A portrait like this would set you far above all the young men in England, and make the old men quite jealous, if old men were ever capable of any emotion." "I know you will laugh at me," he replied, "but I really can't exhibit it. I've put too much of myself into it." Lord Henry stretched himself out on the divan and laughed. "Yes, I knew you would, but it is quite true all the same." "Too much of yourself in it, upon my word, Basil. I did not know you were so vain, and I really can't see any resemblance between you, with your rugged strong face and your coal-black hair, and this young Adonis, who looks as if he was made of ivory and rose leaves. Why, my dear Basil, he is Narcissus, and you, well, of course you have an intellectual expression and all that. But beauty, real beauty, ends where an intellectual expression begins. Intellect is in itself a mode of exaggeration, and destroys the harmony of any face. The moment one sits down to think, one becomes all nose, or all forehead, or something horrid. Look at the successful men in any learned professions. How perfectly hideous they are. Except, of course, in the church. But then in the church, they don't think. A bishop keeps on saying at the age of 80 what he was told to say when he was a boy of 18, and as a natural consequence, he always looks absolutely delightful. Your mysterious young friend, whose name you have never told me, whose picture really fascinates me, never thinks. I feel quite sure of that. He is some brainless, beautiful creature who should always be there in winter when we have no flowers to look at, and always here in summer when we want something to chill our intelligence. Don't flatter yourself, Basil. You are not in the least like him." "You don't understand me, Harry," answered the artist. "Of course I'm not like him. I know that perfectly well. Indeed, I should be sorry to look like him. You shrug your shoulders? I am telling you the truth. There is a fatality of all physical and intellectual distinction, the sort of fatality that seems to dog through the history, the faltering steps of kings. It is better to not be different from one's fellows. The ugly and the stupid have it the best in the world. They can sit in their ease and gape at the play. If they know nothing of victory, they are at least spared the knowledge of defeat. They live as we all should live, undisturbed, indifferent, and without disquiet. They neither bring ruin upon others, nor ever receive it from alien hands. Your rank and wealth, Harry, my brains, such as they are, my art, whatever it may be worth, Dorian Gray's good looks. We shall all suffer for what the gods have given us, suffer terribly. And this, my friends, is called foreshadowing. Dorian Gray, is that his name? Asked Lord Henry, walking across the studio towards Basil Howard. Yes, that is his name. I didn't intend to tell it to you. But why not? Oh, I can't explain. When I like people immensely, I never tell their names to anyone. It is like surrendering a part of them. I've grown to love secrecy. It seems to be the only thing that can make modern life mysterious or marvelous to us. The commonest thing is delightful if one only hides it. When I leave town now, I never tell my people where I'm going. If I did, I would lose all my pleasure. It is a silly habit, I dare say, but somehow it seems to bring a great deal of romance to one's life. I suppose you think me awfully foolish about it. Not at all, answered Lord Henry, not at all, my dear Basil. You seem to forget that I am married, and the one charm of marriage is that it makes a life of deception absolutely necessary for both parties. I never know where my wife is, and my wife never knows what I am doing. When we meet, we do meet occasionally, when we dine out together, when we go down to the Duke's. We tell each other the most absurd stories with the most serious faces. My wife is very good at it, much better, in fact, than I am. She never gets confused over her dates, and I always do. But when she does find me out, she makes no row at all. I sometimes wish she would, but she merely laughs at me. Ah yes, the tenets of a successful marriage. I hate the way you talk about your married life, Harry, said Basil Howard, strolling towards the door that led into the garden. I believe that you are a very good husband, and that you are thoroughly ashamed of your own virtues. You are an extraordinary fellow. You never say a moral thing, and you never do a wrong thing. Your cynicism is simply a pose. 1 second while I hydrate myself. Oh, I did not know that my VTuber simply died whenever I take a sip of water. Mads, would you say that this is true, being somewhat of a married man yourself? Also, I hope that it's not intrusive, but I was wondering if, well, maybe that's better left to the DMs to ask. But anyways, that was a good water break. Let us continue. Being natural is simply a pose, and the most irritating pose I know, cried Lord Henry, laughing. And the two men went out into the garden together and ensconced themselves on a long bamboo seat that stood in the shade of a tall laurel bush. The sunlight slipped over the polished leaves. In the grass, white daisies were tremulous. After a pause, Lord Henry pulled out his watch. I am afraid I must be going, Basil, he murmured, and before I go, I insist on your answering a question I have put to you some time ago. Yes. What is that? Said the painter, keeping his eyes fixed on the ground. You know quite well. I do not, Harry. Well, I will tell you what it is. I want you to explain to me why you won't exhibit Dorian Gray's picture. I want the real reason. I told you the real reason. No, you did not. You said it was because there was too much of yourself in it. Now, that is childish. Harry, said Basil Howard, looking at him in the face, every portrait that is painted with feeling is a portrait of the artist, not the sitter. The sitter is merely the accident, the occasion. It is not he who is revealed by the painter. It is rather the painter who, on the colored canvas, reveals himself. The reason I will not exhibit this picture is that I am afraid I have shown in it the secret of my own soul. And the secret is that he is very gay for Dorian and he is a giant simp. But I was wondering, since there are a few VTubers in chat, if people in your regular life know that you're a VTuber. Do you tell people, for instance? I've always wondered that myself. Simp train. Like, do you have friends that you tell about this? Do you ever worry about getting doxxed by your friends? Sometimes I think about it quite a bit. Only 4 people know who you are. Okay. In that case, I do hope that one of them is your partner. And I hope that they are supportive of you in your endeavors. I do look forward to watching you stream, Mads. I think it'll be very interesting. Oh. Mads, do we need to commit unalive someone for you? Is that what you're saying? Because that's what it sounds like. You know, it can very easily be done. It's not like anyone knows what we look like. Alright, well, the offer is on the table if you ever need some help. Just ask. But let us get back to the story. Lord Henry laughed. And what is that? He asked. I will tell you, said Hallward, but an expression of perplexity came over his face. I'm all expectation. Wow. Already stumbling over words today. Beaver hit squad indeed. But you know, how will they know which beaver did it if we are all beavers? I think it would be very interesting if you ever got a beaver model, because then we would just swap out the hair for all of us. I think it would be very interesting. I feel like we can already do this because you do wear Esper's hair like a wig. Yes, it would be amazing. I will tell you, said Hallward, but an expression of perplexity came over his face. I'm all expectation, Basil, continued his companion, glancing at him. Oh, there really is very little to tell, Harry, said the painter, and I'm afraid you will hardly understand it. Perhaps you will hardly believe it. I mean, fair. Although it looks less like they dropped their hair or cut it, and it looked more like a wig. So that's very interesting. I mean, Esper did draw a dark version and also a light version. So perhaps they just swap between the 3 wigs, and that's all it is. Lord Henry smiled and, leaning down, plucked a pink-petaled daisy from the grass and examined it. Oh, look! It's time to ban someone. There we go. Goodbye. It's a shame too, because they had an interesting name. So now there will never be a real Shark Boxes. Yes, that was a bot. But anyways, Lord Henry smiled, leaning down and plucked a pink-petaled daisy from the grass and examined it. I'm quite sure that I shall understand it, he said, gazing intently at the little golden, white feathered disc. And as for believing things, I can believe anything, provided that it is quite incredible. The wind shook some blossoms from the trees, and the heavy lilac blooms, with their clustering stars, moved to and fro in the languid air. A grasshopper began to chirp by the wall, and like a blue thread, a long thin dragonfly floated past on its brown gauze wings. Lord Henry felt as if he could hear Basil Hallward's heart beating, and wondered what was coming. One of the things that I do enjoy the most about this text is how vivid the imagery is. And so here's something that I learned, and it is that some people cannot picture anything in their minds. Like, they can't hold an image in their brain at all. And I feel terribly sorry for them, because one of my favorite pastimes is looking at pieces of dead tree and vividly hallucinating the story. So, quite a big miss for them. Yes. It feels vibrant. It's very poetic, I think. And something I do hope that I can emulate in my own stories. Because outside of reading them, I am somewhat of a poet. Yes. I think I saw it somewhere before, but it's quite impressionable. But let us continue. The story is simply this, said the painter after some time. 2 months ago, I went to a crush at Lady Brandon's. You know how we poor artists have to show ourselves in society from time to time, just to remind the public that we are not savages. With an evening coat and a white tie, as you told me once, anybody, even a stockbroker, can gain a reputation for being civilized. Well, after I'd been in the room about 10 minutes, talking to huge overdressed dowaggers and tedious academians, I suddenly became conscious that someone was looking at me. I turned halfway and saw Dorian Gray for the first time. When our eyes met, I felt that I was growing pale. A curious sensation of terror came over me. Ah yes, the gay panic. I knew that I had come face to face with someone whose mere personality was so fascinating that, if I allowed it to do so, it would absorb my whole nature, my whole soul, my very art itself. I did not want any external influence on my life. You know yourself, Harry, how independent I am by nature. I've always been my own master. I had at least always been so until I met Dorian Gray. Then, but I don't know how to explain it to you, something seemed to tell me that I was on the verge of a terrible crisis in my life, and I had a strange feeling that fate had in store for me exquisite joys and exquisite sorrows. I grew afraid and turned to quit the room. It was not conscience that made me do so. It was a sort of cowardice. I take no credit to myself for trying to escape. Hot boy fear, indeed. Conscience and cowardice are really the same things, Basil. Conscience is the trade name of the firm, that is all. I don't believe that, Harry, and I don't believe you do either. However, whatever was my motive, and it may have been pride, for I used to be very proud, I certainly struggled to the door. There, of course, I stumbled against Lady Brandon. You're not going to run away so soon, Mr. Howard, she screamed out. What a fascinating way of describing someone talking. You know her curiously shrill voice. I will not be emulating her curiously shrill voice. Yes, she is a peacock in anything but beauty, said Lord Henry, pulling the daisy to bits with his long, nervous fingers. I could not get rid of her. She brought me up to royalties, and people with stars and garters, and elderly ladies with gigantic tiaras and parrot noses. She spoke of me as her dearest friend. I had only met her once before, but she took it into her head to lionize me. I believe some picture of mine had made a great success of the time. At least had been chattered about in the penny newspapers, which is the 19th century standard of immortality. Why are you running, art boy? This, anytime anyone has any amount of gay panic. I just think about that episode of The Simpsons where Ned Flanders is in his snowsuit and he's going, um, it's like I'm wearing nothing at all. And then Homer just starts screaming. That's exactly how I envisioned it. 1 second, I'm going to hydrate. I wish when I hydrated I didn't just simply die, but that's okay. Anyways. Thank you for the follow, Yeliro. And welcome in. We are reading chapter 1 of The Picture of Dorian Gray. But we are reading the censored version. I think that after some time, some milestone, I will bust out the uncensored version. It's fun to see the model I don't know if it's panicking or if it's just simply freezing and staring dead into the middle distance with absolutely soulless eyes and no expression. What is it? Undead Jirou isn't real. He can't hurt you. And then it's just like my default model. But anyways. Suddenly, I found myself face to face with the young man whose personality so strangely stirred me. We were quite close, almost touching. Our eyes met again. It was reckless of me, but I asked Lady Brandon to introduce me to him. Perhaps it was not so reckless after all. It was simply inevitable. We would have spoken to each other without any introduction. I am sure of that. Dorian told me afterwards. He too felt that we were destined to know each other. Know each other biblically, perhaps? And how did Lady Brandon describe this wonderful young man? Asked his companion. I know she goes in for giving a rapid précis of all of her guests. I remember her bringing me up to a truculent and a red-faced old gentleman covered all over with orders and ribbons, and hissing into my ear in a tragic whisper, which must have been perfectly audible to everyone in the room, the most astounding details. I simply fled. I like to find out people for myself, but Lady Brandon treats her guests exactly as an auctioneer treats his goods. She either explains them entirely away, or tells one everything about them except what one wants to know. Poor Lady Brandon, you are hard on her, Harry, said Howard listlessly. My dear fellow, she tried to found a salon and only succeeded in opening a restaurant. How could I admire her? But tell me, what did she say about Mr. Dorian Gray? Oh, something like, charming boy. Poor dear mother and I, absolutely inseparable, quite forget what he does. Afraid he doesn't do anything? Oh yes, he plays the piano, or is it the violin, dear Mr. Gray? Neither of us could help laughing, and we became friends at once. Laughter is not at all a bad beginning for a friendship, and it is far the best ending for one, said the young lord, plucking another daisy. Howard shook his head. You don't understand what friendship is, Harry, he murmured, or what enmity is, for that matter. You like everyone. That is to say, you are indifferent to everyone. Mads, I think you are not wrong. You are not wrong. But I will not be repeating that. You're not. I do agree with you. You said the quiet part out loud. How horribly unjust of you, cried Lord Henry, tilting his head back and looking up at the little clouds that, like raveled skeins of glossy white silk, were drifting across the hollow turquoise of the summer sky. Yes, horribly unjust of you. I make a great difference between people. I choose my friends for their good looks, my acquaintances for their good characters, and my enemies for their good intellects. A man cannot be too careful in the choice of his enemies. I have not got one who is a fool. They are all men of some intellectual power, and consequently they all appreciate me. Is that very vain of me? I think it is rather vain. I should think it was Harry, but according to your category, I must merely be an acquaintance. My dear old Basil, you are much more than an acquaintance, and much less than a friend. A sort of brother, I suppose? Oh, brothers. I don't care for brothers. My elder brother won't die, and my younger brothers never seem to do anything else. Oof. Harry, exclaimed Howard, frowning. My dear fellow, I'm not quite serious, but I can't help detesting my relations. I hope it comes from the fact that none of us can stand other people having the same faults as ourselves. I quite sympathize with the rage of English democracy against what they call the vices of the upper orders. The masses feel that drunkenness, stupidity, and immorality should be their own special property, and that if any one of us makes an ass of himself, he is poaching on their preserves. And poor Southwark got into the divorce court. Their indignation was quite magnificent, and yet I don't suppose that 10% of the proletariat live correctly. There we go. Pour one out for the younger brothers. Although, I think at the time, infant mortality rates were rather high. I don't agree with a single word you've said, and what is more, Harry, I feel you don't either. Lord Henry stroked his pointed brown beard and tapped the toe of his patent leather boot with a tasseled ebony cane. How English you are, Basil. That is the second time you've made that observation. If one puts forward an idea to a true Englishman, always a rash thing to do, he never dreams of considering whether the idea is right or wrong. The only thing he considers of any importance is whether one believes it oneself. Now, the value of an idea has nothing whatsoever to do with the insincerity of the man who expresses it. Indeed, the probabilities are that the more sincere the man is, the more purely intellectual will the idea be, and in that case, it will not be colored by either his wants, his desires, or his prejudices. However, I don't propose to discuss politics, sociology, or metaphysics with you. I like persons better than principles, and I like persons with no principles better than anything else in the world. Tell me about Mr. Dorian Gray. How often do you see him? Every day. I couldn't be happy if I didn't see him every day. He is absolutely necessary to me. How extraordinary. I thought you would never care for anything but your art. He is all art to me now, said the painter gravely. I sometimes think, Harry, that there are only two eras of any importance in the world's history. The first is the appearance for a new medium of art, and the second is the appearance of a new personality for art also. What the invention of oil painting was to the Venetians, the face of Antonius was to Greek sculpture, and the face of Dorian Gray will someday be to me. It is not merely that I paint from him, draw from him, sketch from him. Of course, I've done all that. But he is more to me than a model or a sitter. I cannot tell you that I am dissatisfied with what I have done of him, or that his beauty is such that art cannot express it. There is nothing that art cannot express, and I know the work I've done since I met Dorian Gray is good work, is the best work of my life. But in some curious way, I wonder, will you understand me? His personality has suggested to me an entirely new manner in art, an entirely new mode of style. I see things differently. I think of them differently. I can now recreate life in a way that was hidden from me before. A dream of form in days of thought. Who is it who says that? I forget, but it is what Dorian Gray has been to me. The merely visible presence of this lad, for he seems a little more than a lad, though he really is over 20. His mere visible presence. I wonder, can you realize what all that means? Unconsciously, he defines for me the lines of a fresh school. A school that is to have in all the passion of the romantic spirit, all the perfection of the spirit that is Greek, the harmony of soul and body, how much that it is. We, in our madness, have separated the two, and have invented a realism that is vulgar, an ideality that is void. Harry, if you only knew what Dorian Gray is to me. You remember that landscape painting of mine for which Agnew offered me such a huge price, which I could not part with? It is one of the best things I've ever done. And why is it so? Because while I was painting it, Dorian Gray sat next to me. Some subtle influence passed from him to me, and for the first time in my life, I saw in the plain woodland the wonder I'd always looked for and always missed. Bro is incredibly down bad. And then I think it's absolutely hilarious that the publisher took one look at this, edited some of the very queer subtext out, and was like, ah, yes, this will pass for a heterosexual normal text for the masses when it's written like this. But anyways, Basil, this is extraordinary. I must see Dorian Gray. Howard got up from the seat and walked up and down the garden. After some time, he came back. Harry, he said, Dorian Gray is to me simply a motive in art. You might see nothing in him. I see everything in him. He is never more present in my work than when no image of him is there. He is a suggestion, as I've said, of a new manner. I find him in the curves of certain lines, in the loveliness and the subtleties of certain colors. That is all. Then why won't you exhibit his portrait? Asked Lord Henry. Hello, welcome in, Adora. We are currently reading chapter 1 of The Picture of Dorian Gray, and also doing a little bit of talking. Feel free to interrupt. Guys, he's not gay. He just really likes painting. Exactly. Then why won't you exhibit his portrait? Asked Lord Henry. Because without intending it, I've put into it some expression of all of his curious artistic idolatry, of which, of course, I never cared to speak to him. He knows nothing about it. He shall never know anything about it, but the world might guess it, and I will not bare my soul to their shallow prying eyes. My heart shall never be put under their microscope. There's too much of myself in the thing, Harry. Too much of myself. Yes, he just really likes the the curves, in the painting and the subtleties of certain colors. That's why. Just trust him. It's about the art. So for people who are just joining in, there is an artist named Basil Howard, and he has fallen in love with I think he's just a nobleman. He doesn't really seem to have any occupation. Back in the day, a lot of people were rich just because they were rich. And that's Dorian Gray. He's done a painting of him, which looks very good. And he is incredibly, as Mats have said, down bad for this sitter. And his friend Lord Henry really wants to meet him. Mads, I will not read that. What will I do with you? You are very lucky this is an 18 plus chat and stream. That's all I have to say. But anyways, poets are not so scrupulous as you are. They know how useful passion is for publication. Nowadays, a broken heart will run to many editions. Mads, I do read it, I just do not read it out loud. But yes. Hold on, one more hydrate. I don't know if this text... I don't know if they have ratings for text like they do for shows and movies. But they did make a movie out of this book. And I will have to say that I do appreciate the casting of Ben Barnes, respectfully, but they did make it a lot more straight, which is unfortunate. I think it really does a disservice to the text. But anyways, and I will have to say that the uncensored version is a little bit more overt in the descriptions, if one could even be, if it could even be possible. But I was thinking about reading it for some milestone, or maybe delving into a chapter or two of it, but I do want to finish the original text first. And Perhaps offering it as a video on YouTube or something of that effect. Delving back in. I hate them for it, cried Howard. An artist should create beautiful things, but should put nothing of his own life in them. We live in an age where men treat art as if it were meant to be a form of autobiography. We have lost the abstract sense of beauty. Someday I will show the world what it is, and for that reason, the world will never see my picture of Dorian Gray. Yes, Jirou bots. Well, so one of the reasons I wanted to do text readings is so that I could make them into videos. Um, that was one of my, I guess, main influences or decisions of that fact. Because I do enjoy listening to audiobooks, and it especially helps me fall asleep. So I was hoping that perhaps it's a little bit presumptuous of me, but I was hoping that I could help put people to sleep as well. Which I guess is the premise and lore of my VTuber. I think that you are wrong, Basil, but I won't argue with you. It is only the intellectually lost who ever argue. Tell me, is Dorian Gray very fond of you? The painter considered for a few moments. He likes me, he answered after a pause. I know he likes me. Of course I flatter him dreadfully. I find a strange pleasure in saying things to him that I know I shall be sorry for having said. As a rule, he is charming to me, and we sit in the studio and talk of 1,000 things. Now and then, however, he is horribly thoughtless, and seems to take a real delight in giving me pain. Then I feel, Harry, that I have given away my whole soul to someone who treats it as if it were a flower to put on his coat, a bit of decoration to charm his vanity, an ornament for a summer's day. Days in summer, Basil, are apt to linger, murmured Lord Henry. Perhaps he will tire sooner than he will. It is a sad thing to think of, but there's no doubt that genius lasts longer than beauty. That accounts for the fact that we all take such pains to overeducate ourselves. In the wild struggle for existence, we want to have something that endures, and so we fill our minds with rubbish and facts in the silly hope of keeping our place. The thoroughly well-informed man, that is the modern ideal. And the mind of the thoroughly well-informed man is a dreadful thing. It is a bric-a-brac shop, all monsters and dust, with everything priced with above its proper value. I think you will tire first all the same. Someday you will look at your friend, and he will seem to you to be a little out of drawing, or you won't like his tone of color, or something. You will bitterly reproach him in your own heart, and seriously think that he has behaved very badly to you. The next time he calls, you will be perfectly cold and indifferent. It will be a great pity, for it will alter you. What you have told me is quite a romance, a romance of art, one might call it. And the worst of having a romance of any kind is that it leaves one so unromantic. Harry, don't talk like that. As long as I live, the personality of Dorian Gray will dominate me. You can't feel what I feel. You change too often. He is definitely getting his heart played with. I feel like that's the thing, isn't it? People of great personal beauty tend to take it for granted. At least, unfortunately, that's been the case, I find. Ah, my dear Basil, that is exactly why I can feel it. Those who are faithful only know the trivial side of love. It is the faithless who know love's tragedies. And Lord Henry struck a light on a dainty silver case and began to smoke a cigarette with a self-conscious and satisfied air, as if he had summed up the world in a phrase. There was a rustling of chirping sparrows in the green lacquer leaves of the ivy, and the blue cloud shadows chased themselves across the grass like swallows. How pleasant it was in the garden, and how delightful other people's emotions were, much more delightful than their ideas, it seemed to him. One's own soul and the passion of one's friends, those were the fascinating things in life. He pictured to himself, with silent amusement, the tedious luncheon he had missed by staying so long with Basil Howard. Had he gone to his aunt's, he would have been met with Lord Goodbody there, and the whole conversation would have been about the feeding of the poor and the necessity for model lodging houses. Each class would have preached the importance of those virtues, for whose exercise there was no necessity in their own lives. The rich would have spoken on the value of thrift, and the idle grown eloquent over the dignity of labor. It was charming to have escaped all that. As he thought of his aunt, an idea seemed to strike him. He turned to Howard and said, "My dear fellow, I have just remembered." "Remembered what, Harry?" "Where I heard of the name Dorian Gray." "And where was it?" asked Howard, with a slight frown. "Don't look so angry, Basil. It was at my aunt, Lady Agatha's. She told me she discovered a wonderful young man who was going to help her on the East End, and his name was Dorian Gray. I am bound to state that she never told me he was good-looking. Women have no appreciation of good looks. At least, good women have not. She said he was very earnest and had a beautiful nature. I at once pictured myself a creature with spectacles and lank hair, horribly freckled, and tramping about on huge feet. I wish I had known it was your friend." "I'm very glad you didn't, Harry." "Why?" "I don't want you to meet him." "You don't want me to meet him?" "No." "Mr. Dorian Gray's in the studio, sir," said the butler, coming into the garden. "You must introduce me now," cried Lord Henry, laughing. The painter turned to his servant, who stood blinking in the sunlight. "Ask Mr. Gray to wait, Parker. I shall be in a few moments." The man bowed and went up the walk. Then he looked at Lord Henry. "Dorian Gray is my dearest friend," he said. He has a simple and a beautiful nature. Your aunt was quite right in what she said of him. Don't spoil him. Don't try to influence him. Your influence would be bad. The world is wide and has many marvelous people in it. Don't take away from me the one person who gives to me my art, whatever charm it possesses. My life as an artist depends on him. Mind, Harry, I trust you." He spoke very slowly, and the words seemed wrung out of him, almost against his will. "What nonsense you talk," said Lord Henry, smiling, and taking Howard by the arm, almost led him into the house. So, there's a lot of foreshadowing here, but I think just from listening to this text and reading it together, you can kind of tell what happens. There is quite a bit of foreshadowing. And of course, the very thing that Basil fears is what comes to pass. Harry is like, "I want to see Hot Boy too, but also I want to corrupt Hot Boy." And we will see what that's like in the coming chapters. But for now, thank you for joining me. That will be it for reading today. I am not quite sure what we will be doing tomorrow, but I'm very excited for Thursday, because on Thursday, we will be playing The Forest. And my good friend Kiko Nico and my good friend Esper, and of course Mads in chat, we will be fathers in the forest trying to find our son. In Thursday, you get to die. Well, hopefully that doesn't happen. If we play our cards right, there will be a minimal amount of dying. I do need to get everyone's Discord reactive set up and all of that, so I will be getting in touch with the three of you later on. But I thought it would be good for us to unwind a little bit and just chat. But give me one moment, something has fallen, so hold on 1 second. That was my tablet, but I've put it back up and all is right in the world. Let us find someone to stream into. I always have to mute Twitch. Because it tries to autoplay the first thing. Welcome in, Nocturnus. You actually came in right at the end. We are about to raid, I think. I think that's the term. We're about to raid someone. We finished reading the first chapter of The Picture of Dorian Gray. It will be in the VODs, and later on, I think I will be uploading it to YouTube as well. But thank you so much for coming by. Yes. Thank you for joining us at the end and joining us for the raid portion. I do apologize for sounding a bit more tired than usual. I had, I think, about 3 hours of sleep last night. But I will be back again tomorrow, so no need to worry. We are doing the affiliate push, so I will be streaming almost every single day this week. And, well, the schedule's pinned on Twitter. Three hours. I still streamed, and not only that, but I also worked for 8 hours. And not only that, but I fixed the IT problems that they were facing. Although I do say it is a far cry from when I was in undergraduate. When I was much younger, I used to be able to stay up for, well, over 24 hours. I think I would be able to go for 36, just go to a party, wake up the next day, and go to class and all that stuff. And then afterwards, write an essay. Yes, I will be getting some sleep after I pass everyone off. I'm just not entirely sure who to stream into. But I think we got it. So this person is named Solaris. I don't know if you are familiar with them, but I've become acquainted with quite a few people over Twitter. And I'm glad that you're here, Nocturnus. I welcome you to come back again tomorrow. And more importantly, on Thursday, where I'll be playing the Forest. Yes. Oh, they have follower or subscriber only chat. Well, that's okay. So, without further ado, thank you so much for coming in, and have a great evening. Goodbye.